reason, actually. I think on the last call, we did share. Oh, what's that? Who's that? What's going on, Anna?
I don't know. I will.
I think it's somebody's mobile phone going off.
Right.
I think it might be.
Okay. What I was going to say, and I want to say this forum obviously has been professionalised by Anna and my son Aaron. I've done it in a very ad hoc way for the last nearly 6 years. Next month it celebrates its 6th birthday. But we really are delighted and grateful to our 4 founding sponsors that embody the values and principles of which the 3 of us set up the website, which I think you've all got access to now. And that is Hans Grohe, Velux, Imperial, Bricks and Canal. 4 incredible businesses. And even though 3 of them are multi-billion-pound businesses, they still have a family member in the business. And Imperial Bricks was founded by Jason and his good lady, Ruth. And Jason's on the call. They aren't a multi-billion-pound business, but with your help, you might get Imperial to a multi-billion-pound business. They're a 45 million pound business, a family-run business that I'm really proud to have part of our journey as we move forward. But they absolutely, all 4 businesses are totally committed to supporting SME builders grow and develop their business. So I just wanted to say thank you to our 4 founding suppliers that are going to really help us professionalise to support you even more so than what we've done so far. So that's a little bit from me. I think I've also got to make a big thank you, and I never mentioned the company that apparently I work for officially on a day-to-day basis, and I'm not going to mention their name because this is not a selling exercise. I think you all know who I work for from a day-to-day point of view, but I have to thank that business because without them, I wouldn't be able to hold these forums. I've been allowed to do that. I've also been allowed to be secretariat for the all-party parliamentary group for SME Housebuilders, and I've also been allowed to become a director of the Regional Building Foundation, which clearly Ben Bolgar, and I have pronounced your name correctly, Ben, for the first time ever. Ben will be talking about that, and obviously Ben works for the King's Foundation, so it's super exciting. And again, I've been allowed to work with that, which is all about my company that I work for supporting the efforts of SME Housebuilders. So I'm grateful to the company that I work for allowing me to do what I do, which is, I guess, a passion. It's a movement I think we're creating collectively together. So before I hand over to Ben Bolgar, I've got a gentleman who is probably equally, if not more well known than me in the industry, a character, probably larger than life, and he wants to partner in some shape or form with the R&B House Builder Forum. But his business has been running 30 odd years. He circulates an incredible publication magazine called Show House to probably coming up to 10,000 people from the industry. So I'm going to give Rupert Bates, owner, editor of Show House magazine. I've told him he's only got 5 minutes, but we are looking to work with Show House strategically. Rupert is also somebody committed to SME Housebuilders. In fact, some of you may remember May 2020, he had an article on what he called the Banda Builders, which is what he labelled this forum as. And not only did we have, I think, 6 or 7 pages, which I hasten to add he did free of charge. It was a wonderful editorial, which I'm sure he'll do for us continuing going forward. But he even took Stuart Baisley, the chairman or executive chairman of the Home Builders Federation, off the front cover and had us as the front cover, because Stuart Baisley phoned me. He said, I was supposed to be on the front cover until the band of builders and Rupert put you guys on there. So I'm going to shut up and hand over to you, Rupert, for your 5 minutes before we hand over to Ben Bolgar.
Thanks very much, Edwin, and thanks, Anna. And yeah, hi everybody. This is more of a passion pitch, not a sales pitch. Obviously, as Edwin said, it's been great to be involved from the start. And obviously, just going forward, any news items, feature ideas, whatever, feed through Anna to me. We're always looking for great SME content for Show House. But this specifically is just to do with the What House Awards, and I know there's plenty on the call who've entered, who've won, who know an awful lot about the awards. But we're just having a real sort of look at refreshing it for this year. And so hopefully what's going to be incoming quite soon via email is a very, very short informal questionnaire just to get your sort of hugely valued opinions and feedback on the current state of the What House Awards in terms of categories and how we run it. So what I'm really looking for is whether you have any ideas in terms of new categories we might be missing that sort of better reflect the modern house builder and the work you guys do. Maybe categories that perhaps are becoming a bit obsolete in the new world. So we're just looking for a refresh. We're very much, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It remains the industry's premier event and premier awards. But I'd really, really value your thoughts on any ways we can improve what happens on the day, the running of the day, the format of the day, but more immediately the categories and whether we're missing some really key categories that best showcase what you in particular do as house builders. And I appreciate you've got loads on your plate, but I'd really, really value your thoughts on that. So that's really the sort of the couple of minutes I wanted to, and I think Anna will hopefully circulate an email and get your feedback, and also I'm not just saying this, I do every year. Obviously we're blessed with a lot of entries, but I think there's a lot of top quality house builders, including a lot on this call, who probably don't enter, and that could be for a variety of reasons, just the time, the effort, even the cost. But I know there's some great winning developments out there, but you've got to be in it to win it. So it's a pitch to get you more involved in the awards. But I just love your feedback, because if the categories don't work for you, we'd love to know the ones that do, and how we can just improve the industry Oscars. So that's my pitch, and thank you very much, Edwin, for the slot.
No, look, Rupert, and I'm super grateful to you because you put the R&B House Builder Forum on the map, as I said, and the coverage you gave us and that you give us more recently, but more importantly, the coverage you're going to give us free of charge going forward. I think that's hugely appreciated, Rupert. So thank you for that. But seriously, no, we want to work with Show House. Clearly, there's a great partnership that we can have, Rupert, that benefits both your business, but also the people that we represent, which is the SME market. And as you know, this now has become the largest independent forum for the voice of SME house builders. So you communicating that voice, I think, is invaluable to everybody on the call, to get that message across to the wider audience. So thank you for being on the call, and we'll be delighted to support you. And I'm sure the members will probably take less than 5 minutes to complete something, so that we can hopefully contribute and also help shape them. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So God knows how this particular gentleman ever decided to introduce himself to me, because I actually didn't introduce myself to him. He introduced himself to me. Probably 4 years on, he's hugely regretting it. And also the fact that he's now even got me as a fellow board director of the newly formed Regional Building Foundation. I'm not going to say much more, but hand over to a gentleman I always say to anybody has got a purpose greater than himself. having worked for Prince Charles for over 35 years, I think, and now our King, Ben has an immense amount of experience all over the world, but particularly in terms of SMEs, place building, and really creating mixed-use communities where it has huge benefits to society as a whole. And I think you should all be super excited about what Ben's going to be sharing with us all, which really, to be fair, I think the introduction to Ben to me came out of the back of this forum and Ben learning of it. So again, I have to thank you all for being part of this forum and making it what it is, because it's resulted in my involvement with something that I absolutely love being part of, which is the Regional Building Foundation. So hopefully that's a good enough introduction to you, Ben. I've pronounced your name correctly twice now, your surname. So hopefully I'm back in your good books, and over to you, Ben.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Edwin. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to try and share my screen. Let's see if this works.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
How's that
It's all
work?
good. It's all good, Ben.
We're
Yeah.
good?
Yeah.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and thanks very much, Edwin, for the chance to speak to so many people. This is fantastic. So I'll try and, no pressure, I'll try and make it worth everyone's while, and hopefully people can stay awake. But this is very exciting. This is a 2-year knowledge transfer partnership between the King's Foundation and the University for the Built Environment. And it's essentially taken 2 years of hard work and research to get to the starting line, if you like. But the starting line now exists because the Regional Building Foundation was set up as a community interest company a couple of weeks ago. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it's aiming to do. The important thing, I think, to say is that we've been guided during that 2 years, not just by the colleagues at the University for the Built Environment and our researcher, Maggie Zala, many of you know, but by a really august steering group, and now 90% of which are an advisory board, which is very, very important because for those of you that may remember, this is all about agglomeration. This is about trying to bring together the many actors that exists in the world of house building, place building, home building, whatever you want to call it. And that involves so many different types of people, but they often only meet in different sectors. So the house builders and then speak to each other. So you get developers talking to developers, promoters talking to promoters, and such like. But of course, when you're trying to build a place, you need the many actors together. And we've been trying over many, many years, well, 38 years to be precise, to slightly break the mold of what's now the prevalent model of house building and try and reinvent, if you like, building great places, which have become very, very few and far between on the new build front. So that was the mission. So when I had the good fortune to bump into Edwin many years ago, it was actually to come together at Oxford University and bring together a group of major landowners that I have convened for 7-8 years under the Building a Legacy network as part of the King's Foundation. Edwin, as we know, convenes probably the largest independent group of SME regional builders. And that just seemed like a powerful formula because, as I'll come on to, we see within this model of place building, we see regional SME builders as the kind of core to that model. It's absolutely essential. I've tried many, many years to make volume builders and national builders follow the model, and it's just not their model. So there's no point. Their model is fine. Their model's doing what it's doing, but we are aiming to set up an alternative parallel model to bring home to the punters. So it seemed sensible when we sat down with this idea that stemmed out of this one-day workshop at College Oxford to bring together an august group of experts in different fields, and we referred to them as the spokes. So what we now have is we have 5 directors, myself, Edwin, Ashley, Paul and Nicola, And crudely speaking, I represent, if you like, one of the largest landowner, or perhaps the largest organised major landowner forum in the UK under the Building a Legacy group that's actively pursuing this legacy model. Edwin, as I mentioned, probably convenes the largest independent SME network, and also, of course, is the Secretariat for the APPG. And Ashley Wheaton, with whom we partnered on the KTP, has, I think, if you combine professionals and apprenticeship under the University of the Built Environment, they are set up, and they've recently had a name change from the University College of Estate Management, specifically to bring together architecture, planning, all the different disciplines involved in the built environment together under one roof. So I think between the three of us, and then if you add to that the networks of major material suppliers, you've probably got individually some of the largest networks in their kind in the UK. When you bring them together, it is undoubtedly the largest agglomerated network of its kind, I think it's fair to say, in the UK. And that in itself has huge potential. So I just want to hold that thought, because what we're wanting to do is to sort of coordinate and agglomerate that network and group of people towards a vision that we're quite excited about. And again, I'm happy to share these slides so you can see who's also been helping us along the way. I'd like to say a big shout out, because I know a number of people are on the call, but it's a huge amount of effort. We've been meeting quarterly or every couple of months, it feels like, and then reaching out to people. Nobody's been paid to do this, and we've had, you know, when you tot up the hours that everyone's put in, it's really, really significant. So this is a pretty well developed strategy that now needs putting into action. So here we are. What is it? The vision is a new generation of regionally distinctive places that foster healthy, vibrant and resilient communities. And our mission is to accelerate place building by coordinating regional house builders, landowners, material suppliers and funders with a scalable building system. So that's basically what we're setting out to do. We're agglomerating the four major actors in that: house builders, landowners, material suppliers, obviously with a regional bias, and funders, with this scalable building system, which I'll come on to, which is something we've been developing with partners over 30, 40 years and testing out on the grounds.
Ben, sorry, are you moving your slides? Are you thinking you are, because they're not moving on the screen?
Can you see the mission and vision?
No, it was still on the first slide, Ben.
Yeah, so I was thinking. Can you see that?
It's not moved. The slide is still on the original, on the first slide, just the front slide, Ben. So it's not moved. I mean, it's worth mentioning.
Enable editing to let it slide.
Yeah, you might need to click the enable editing.
So before I share or after?
Yeah, I would click it before you share.
And what I'd say while you're doing that, Ben, I think there's a big shout out from my point of view to Nicola from Clark Wilmot, who sits on the board with Ben, myself and Ashley, and also a gentleman who's been hugely helpful in the strategy, the thinking, and keeping us thinking outside the box, is Paul Sonnabend, chairman from Relendex, which is a funder to small SME builders. So I know Paul's on the call. I believe Nicola is. I think Ashley Wheating is on the call as well. So, you know, this is we've utilised this over the last 2 years, using people that are experts in their own field with a vision and a general purpose. Right, Ben, that's it. I think it's worth sharing with everybody the calibre of people that we've got.
Sorry, so there, I'll share this, but that's a list of all the people and more. We've actually had way more than this, but these are now the people who are formally advising us and are part of this journey as we go ahead, along with the 5 directors that we've got. That's the vision. New generation of regionally distinctive places that foster healthy, vibrant and resilient communities. and then to accelerate place building by coordinating regional house builders, landowners, material suppliers and funders with a scalable building system. So what do we mean by place building? And we've deliberately used that term. A lot of people use the slightly woolly term place making, but we definitely want this to be, it's the Regional Building Forum, and this is very much about building great places. So we thought it would be helpful to define it, and we'll be able to release, when the website's up and running, the research, detailed research that's been done on this. The typical model, which is 70+% of all new homes, is mainly just housing, car dependent, monocultural. By that I mean that there's a fairly slim range of types. I think it's fair to say in most cases fairly anonymous. You can't really tell where that picture above is in the country. Often zoned tenures. The landscaping is fairly absent. You typically find sort of hardscape, black tarmac everywhere. And it's the kind of model of national house builders, which does what it does and definitely has a place, but is of a certain kind and to a degree stereotype. And having run many community engagement projects, I've got a fairly clear idea of what people think about that when it arrives on their doorstep in every town and village across the UK. What we're about, and there are a growing number of examples within our network of places that have broken the mold. And this is the very important bit, is where you co-locate homes and workspaces, and particularly affordable workspaces, in order to get that activity of life. So it's not just houses, it's homes co-located with workspaces. That in turn creates something that's a walkable community, because you've got to have something to walk to: schools, shops, businesses. There's typically much greater diversity. You'll find, big multi-million-pound flats next door to small starter units. So there's a great range, because the valuation is developed on building the place, not a plot maximization valuation system. So it's a different model. Very much majors on being locally distinctive. So it tries to use regional materials wherever possible, so it fits in with its local landscape and local vernacular. Pepper potted and tenure blind, so very much integrating affordable housing. You shouldn't be able to tell which tenures and what's public and private, so to speak. Integrated landscape, so good landscape strategy threaded through the development, and as I mentioned, built out by 1, 2, 3 or more regional builders in the form of a consortium. And the benefits of that are I won't have time to go into, but there are enormous natural, social, financial and built benefits to that model. And just to pick one example in terms of walkability, because walking every day is one of the biggest health benefits. 1 hour walk a day. If anybody's approaching 70, a 1 hour walk a day in the over 70s reduces the risk of the top 5 serious diseases by 70%, 70%. So walking is actually pretty good for you. And that space syntax model, the spatial model at the bottom, shows the walkability indices of Poundbury, which has 2,500 jobs for 2,200 homes. And another project, which is a fairly good example of the house building model, Eltham Heath in Hampshire, which has got its school, its GP surgery, and its shop. But then you can see the cooler is 4% walkability score versus 88%. So just by putting a shop and a doctor's surgery and a school in the middle of a new housing estate doesn't automatically make it walkable. And that is just one of the indicators that we're kind of interested in.
Ben,
I think it's fair to, yeah.
Could I just sorry, I know you're in your flow. There is one gentleman on the call, and I think it's important for me to just mention, not all of you on the call will be looking at projects of this size. What Ben's going to come on to is whether you're building 5 or 50 units a year. What we're doing as the Regional Building Foundation, and you need to wait further on, will demonstrate what we're trying to do to support you. But we've got Phil Fry, who I think 35 years ago may have been building 25 units as a result of being heavily involved in Poundbury in terms of the way it was structured, today is building 500 units a year and has been at the heart of Poundbury. Phil, and sorry, Ben, but I think it'd be really useful. Would you just say a few words, Phil, from your experience? Because there's a lot of people on the call that might be building 20 units a year that would be saying, this is, you know, this doesn't relate to me, Ben. Great, but I'm building 25 units a year. I want to get there. Phil, do you want to just share, just for a couple of minutes before I hand back to Ben, your experience and how you've managed to structure and galvanise your business on the back of projects such as Poundbury?
Yeah, no, certainly. Yeah, like you said, we've been involved for the last 35 years. When I was a young man when I started Poundbury, a bit like Ben, and it's, yeah, I think what Poundbury led me into believing is if you produce a product that where you invest in the architecture and design of place, then that just helps generate better values and also helps you through tougher markets. I think that's the other important thing, because people want to, they have a desire to buy into a nice community and a nice looking place, rather than the standard bland stuff that Ben showed on the other side of the slide there. So it gives you that incentive. And you know, Poundbury's been, the mechanism of Poundbury and how we pay for our land is actually done under a license arrangement. So we're actually paying on the drip, basically. So we're not paying up front for land, we're paying on a staged basis, so as we sell a house. And that's been a massive help to, you know, when we were a relatively small SME, that payment mechanism has helped us do more than what we could really afford to do if we had to go out and buy big chunks of land. So that's gave us a big step forward. But it, you know, my other view is you know, the design and style and making something bespoke to an area is not just about doing that on large 1,000 house, 2,000 house projects. You know, that can be done at much smaller scale, and I like to think that all our developments that we do are carried out in that vein. You know, we can't always incorporate employment within sites, but that's only if that planning in that particular area want employment integrated. But you know, you can still do all of the other principles of development and making it feel like it belongs to an area, with just good design, basically, and using local materials. So I think that hopefully stands all our other developments we do in that same guise, really. And that also it also drives other landowners become aware of you, and you get landowners approaching you saying, look, I've seen that development you've done here and we quite like that on our land. So it, you know, those sort, you get that flow of land starts to come through that process, really.
Phil,
so that's probably
I'm
enough
really
from me.
grateful.
Back to Ben.
No, well, that's fantastic. And why I say that, there'll be people on the call that are building 10 units a year that this might daunt, thinking, my gosh, you know, but would struggle to do a site of 50. You went on that journey, you've done it, you've shared some stuff. And again, you can make a lot of difference, even on a small site of 10 or 20 units in terms of that. And it's about building the brand. So I really think it was really powerful to have you do that. So I appreciate that. Chris Carr, I know you got your hand up. I'm going to hand back to Ben, but do you want to shoot a quick question, Chris? I'm happy to do that as Ben is. Go on.
It's not a question. It's I mean, Ben was talking about kind of the cooperative building. It's something we do where we are, where, and I know you people would say want to build 5 a year, but build 5 on a site. There's, you know, 10 or 15 developers, all at varying sizes. But then the next site they'll go into 10, the next site they'll go 15 and 20. It's the incubation of a small SME builder or micro builder to be a full SME builder and a regional builder, but buying together and working as a cooperative. I think the nationals do it on their big sites. You know, you see a Barrett site, the Persimmon site, all on the same of the outskirts. We do it locally with just local builders, and some of them will build 250 a year, some will build 1 a year, a subcontractor. And it's that building together. I think it might sound quite daunting for a small build, but if you actually go in at the lower level on the first site, you can build yourself up, and it shows that expansion all the way through.
That's really useful. And Chris, do you want to just introduce yourself? Because I know you, I think lots do, but it's worth then knowing you're a big advocate of everything we're doing. So just introduce yourself and your roles, Chris.
Well, I'm Chris Carr, I'm a housing developer from, as Edwin said, in Grimsby, North East Lincolnshire, but I also am past president of the Federation of Master Builders. Work with the Construction Leadership Council as their representative for the SME sector, and loads of other kind of CITB, and on the board of CSCS and a load of other things. But the passion is the same as everybody here, is the passion for the SME sector. But we are working on that cooperative building, the joint thing with MHCLG. We've already had 3 meetings with them, and they're looking at potentially using that as a template. We have 2 companies in our town that do that cooperative building, and they were the only 2 companies in the whole of the UK that do it. And it's bizarre that they both come from Grimsby. So now they're looking at maybe using the template elsewhere, which would feed into then Ben's and yourselves' vision on here. Is you have an umbrella company, and then you we can talk about this another time, Edwin, but it's so important, the growth from getting your subcontractors to build the first house, to build the first 5 to 10 to 20 under the umbrella of people that are guiding them all the way through it.
Why it's lovely to have you and Phil on it is, one, you're both passionate, both doing stuff about it, and as a small builder, if I was on this call, it will give me confidence to know that I've got trusted people that have been there that could help me on that journey, and that leads nicely into what Ben's going to continue to talk about. So really appreciate both of you being on the call, but also sharing it with the audience. Back to you, Ben. Sorry to interrupt your flow.
No, not at all. That's thanks, Phil and Chris, because that's really important clarity for that. I'll come on to the whole scaling piece, but I think it really is. When the Regional Building Foundation is not just for 2,000 home developments, it's for every scale, and obviously you can build a great place, by adding on and being part of somewhere that's already got the school and the shop and the village. So absolutely, this is for all scales. I think what's really interesting, though, if one looks at it at the scale of the hamlet, the village or the town, if you like, at varying scales. And as Chris said, to be, you can still be building 25 homes a year, but a part of a wider place building agenda is the research that we've carried out, which isn't really a surprise, but we needed to do it, shows that what the majority of people want in the UK is that definition of place building. Sunday Times best place to live last year was, I think, Saffron Walden. It's a vibrant local high street, local character, access to landscape, except meeting your neighbours in the street, that kind of thing. So what's really interesting to us, and it's kind of obvious, but it was a light bulb moment for me when the research came back, is that what people actually want, the majority of people in the UK want, isn't being provided in the new build market, which I think is, for most people, that would be a market opportunity in any other sector. And I've had various foreign investors looking at this when I presented this, and they go, this is odd. They find it really strange that there's this kind of complete disconnect between what most people, not all people, because we know there's a market for house building, and lots of people that I've sold my own developments to say, brilliant, but it's not for me, I want the garage. They want house building, not place building. But the research we've carried out is that the majority of people in the UK are essentially, to get what they want, are buying secondhand. So a lot of people, when we see people moving into these new developments, and Philip and others will have experienced this, they're like, oh my goodness, this is actually it's got all the characteristics of what I want without the repair bills and the and the heating bills, etc. So that's a kind of interesting element. We've also been drilling into, many of you will be aware of what all the hurdles and the stumbling blocks are. And crudely speaking, when you look at the model and the business model, if you're constantly just trying to gasp for air because you're drowning in regulations, your cost of capital's over 10%. And the length of time it takes to get the first house sold is 4 or 5 years on a small site, then it just kills everything off. If what we can do through agglomeration is get people scaled or agglomerated so the cost of capital comes down from 11% to 7%, we can halve the time it takes to get planning. Those 2 factors alone completely turn the tables on viability, for instance. So it's not rocket science. It's all the bits that we're trying to do are remove the hurdles that many of you on this call have told us they're experiencing and making life unbearable. And it's the reason why 13,000 SMEs have gone down to 1,800, 1,500, or whatever the actual number is. We're not quite sure. So what do we intend to do about it? Well, there's 4 activities that we're undertaking, and we're going to start launching these in a phased way. Basically, if you look top left as networking, then educating, enabling, innovating, it's like I describe it as 4 clicks of the dial. We're about to start implementing these 4 steps, which of course link together, as I'll explain, but they are distinct in their own right, and we think they're valuable in their own right. So the first thing we're going to do is just build the network, which is obviously Edwin is the consummate networker. So, but this is not just a network of regional builders. This is a network of major landowners, regional builders, building material suppliers, funders, and general people whose only option in life is to complain about development and join CPRE or someone else and become a NIMBY. We want to create a forum for people who actually want to support good development, because we think there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of negative energy out there for house building. I've experienced a lot of it myself. And actually, if we can say, all right, you know, you must be tired of complaining, why don't you get behind promoting something that's good? We think, well, we know that there will be a lot of people that are interested in that. So we've set up a roadmap for setting up regional forums, and we're about to embark on setting up the first 2 in Dorset and Kent. Interestingly, and it was again a light bulb moment for me, but when I used to get involved in the recce's for Prince of Wales, when he was Prince of Wales visits, I'd quite often get the Lord Lieutenants on the phone saying, I'm a bit worried that the route he's going to take in is past some awful housing development, and perhaps that you can meet up with the local authority and see if there's anything that can be done about housing. And I suddenly thought, Lord Lieutenants are a kind of, you know, they're the sort of, they're actually from the Henry VIII's militias, but they're essentially the king's representatives in the region. And this is very much the king's vision, you know, from Vision of Britain, that we should be building better places around the UK. So I've already reached out to the first 3 Lord Lieutenants, and they are all over this like a rash. They would love to be busybodying around to help us, you know, promote good development in their regions, because it's something they care passionately about. The Lord Lieutenant Michael Dooley in Dorset happens to be an incredible physician, the King's physician. He's a medical doctor, so he understands the link between what we're talking about, good placemaking and health. He's got 45 deputy lieutenants. One of them's a bigger landowner than the King. Another one's Martin Clunes, the actor. It's incredible when you begin to just Google it. Google Lord Lieutenancies in the regions, and we're quite excited because we think once we start to go around the country lighting the beacons in each of the regions and saying this is the place to come to not just talk about good development, but actually get active and with a system, and we can really get going on this. So we're going to launch 14 forums sequentially. We've started the process of writing essentially a curriculum for master development at all scales. So that's from a small site of 20 homes all the way up to building how you approach a regional plan. And now with AI, which is getting better and better by the day, we are digitizing essentially 35 years of IP. So we're literally getting the people who've been there and done that, like Philip and others, at all scales, and we're sucking the knowledge out of their brains and putting it into a digital place building system. And by place building system, this will be available digitally, not just to watch a talk. Many of us have been to CPD things or attended lectures, and they're very stimulating and very interesting, but this is a system. So when you've got your Hamlet, you should be able to look at it and say, right, I've got the pattern books, the templates, the codes, I've got the system, and you can click into it and download each thing that you want, and it will give you solutions. It's a bit like kind of painting by numbers. It will give you solutions to digital information that will enable you to transform your sites to building better. We think that is important, because if we are going to scale, if you don't want to scale, fine, you don't need to. You're going to find hopefully this stuff interesting in making a site of 25 homes better. But if you want to follow Philip's path and be building 400 or 500 a year, and I think the holy grail is kind of 150, 200 a year, where you qualify for a kind of revolving loan fund or where your cost of capital might get less. If you want to go on that journey for scaling because you want a 30-year horizon and still do the other stuff, then obviously developing a system approach, which is smart standardization. It's not a cookie cutter standardization. This is very much about regional approaches. Then that's what we're going to be sharing. Then we believe that even if you are able to access that information, you still want access to the people who've been there and done it. So we've got a framework of expert enablers who spent 30, 40 years doing this stuff, and we're developing a program where people pay a couple £100 a house and you get access to 8 enablers, in 3 consecutive days or 3 days over 3 months. And we think that program would be incredibly valuable. That is at all scales. So the enabling program will be tailored to small sites. We're going to start off primarily focusing on small sites of 25 to 75 homes. So again, we're starting to gather up people who are interested in that pilot program. We're running a pilot program for a year, probably starting in about 6 to 9 months' time. And then on innovation, I'll come on to that, but once we're able to agglomerate scale, and innovation tends to follow scale, it's very difficult to innovate on a site of 25 homes. But if you've got if nationally we've got different people and we've got tens of thousands of homes, then it's easier to go into a window manufacturer and actually say we're looking at, we want to disguise the air vent because it's so bloody ugly, or so scale to us is really important in innovation. And I'll come on to just one example of where we've been doing that. So just rattling through now the 4 clicks of the dial. Networking, we've divided the country up into 14 regions, and they typically are then divided into 5 counties. But the regions are useful because they tend to follow not just administrative boundaries, but geographical boundaries. So these are aligned to building character and building materials, which is quite important because we'll be developing pattern books in the different regions that relate to those materials. So that's where we think the coordination and agglomeration of people will be important. And then obviously with pattern books, we'll be doing small sites, enabling, building, as Chris talked about, consortium building. There'll be opportunities for people to say, oh, I quite like, there are opportunities on this side, that side. What we'll essentially be doing in each of the 14 regions is mapping all of the information so we can begin to see how the patterns overlay of materials, builders, landowners, exactly, and where those opportunities are, because we know that lots and lots of landowners don't want to sell to a volume builder, but at the moment they're worried about the risk. They're worried about the person not having a track record. They're worried about all sorts of things, but they would love to do it. So all we need to do is get people to cut their teeth with a certain system, de-risk it, and then the opportunities will flow, we believe. Just an example, and I'm just picking Hampshire, which is obviously a subset for the southern region. We've already, this is very out of date now because there's another 2 major sites on that, but there's already 4 major sites in Hampshire of legacy landowners, people who are interested in following this model. We've already started to map SME builders by output, and again, people who are interested in this approach, and then we can start to map supply chains, and we can map all sorts of other things as well. We can start to map water catchments, et cetera, et cetera. But the mapping is just incredibly useful. And you probably remember, Edwin, on one of the first sessions we had, the Crown Estate went away and mapped their land and immediately started setting up a British standards testing facility on the M1. The opportunities to understand where the efficiencies are and where the opportunities are by simply being able to look at the map. So this is where we will proactively be having somebody looking at that information and going and picking up the phone and saying, look, I know you're fully occupied building at Wellborn, but have you thought about somebody's just popped up to the north of the county you might be interested in that. So it's a sort of proactive matchmaking service which will emerge. This isn't going to happen overnight, by the way. This is just the structure that we've already sort of developed. The place building toolkit, we've set out the 12 modules or domains, as we're calling it now, because in the digital world you end up with components and domains. It's basically like designing an engine with lots of bits to it that all link together. And that's where we're going to start with the first. We've already got the funding to build the first 5 domains, and we've already identified the people that we want to suck their brains and their computers drive information and clean it up and basically consolidate it. So we'll be taking the best viability templates or appraisals that we can get and cleaning them up and saying this is the template. We'll be taking the best pattern book templates that we've got, the best coding templates we've got for sites of different sizes, and we'll be making that information essentially available so you can click download and fill it in, or you can completely ignore it if you want. You know, it's basically just there for the taking. And as I mentioned, this is the important thing. This is at different scales. So there will be enabling services of people to help you with a site of 20, a site of 70, a site of 200, and much larger sites from 500 to 1500. And we've already got people within the network. Wei Yang, who's our head of digital planning, she's set up the government's digital planning task force. And Gail May, who was on the Building Better Commission, they're very interested in how this digital information can link into local plans. You might say, what the hell has that got to do with me when I'm building 20 houses? Well, things like water neutrality and a lot of these elements that exist at a larger scale need to be cracked. They have major impacts on smaller sites. So if we're also understanding solutions at the scale of the region, that does actually affect smaller sites. So that's why we're interested in the different scales. But you don't have to, I think, as Edwin rightly said and Phil said, you don't have to scale if you don't want. But we do believe for many people there's an advantage to getting a longer time horizon and more opportunity. And then the building system and cost improvements. Obviously, the whole point that we're doing this is that people have preferential supply chain treatments. They're not at the bottom they're not waiting on the call for an hour to try and buy a loose seat or whatever it happens to be. You know, they're part of a bigger network, they're part of a bigger system. The supply chains can be coordinated for people. And essentially the whole point of this is to help with all the burdens of the funding, to help with all the burdens of the supply chains, and to make things more cost effective, quicker, more efficient, so the builders can concentrate on building. I mean, when we did this place building system on the design side and the architecture side, my colleague Ben, he said, God, we developed pattern books with Philip and others, and then got the technical teams in, and looked at how all the details worked and began to get that sort of smart standardization. And Ben said, I used to spend 70% of my time redlining drawings and 30% on site. He said, overnight, I spend 70% on site and 30% marking drawings. And actually, the 70% on site pays so much more dividends because I'm actually meeting people, building relationships, really noticing the quality of what's going on the ground. And so it's kind of self-perpetuating. Just one example on innovation, because innovation kind of will flow from the rest as we coordinate the rest. Some of you may have heard Lee Jackson talking about the whole house model. I was quite interested in this because we developed a pattern book of types, which is narrow fronted, wide fronted, square and L-shaped house types that you basically give a regional overcoat to. And Lee has taken that and basically got 5 chassis, if you like, and then 500 million permutations and combinations of materials that you can kind of change the spec and change the clothing of that. And so we got involved. I said in the politest possible way to Lee that I didn't think his houses looked as nice as they could. So we got together with Ben Pentreath, who we've been developing that pattern book approach to, and we just literally looked at the elevations, and there were a few little tweaks that need to be made, like bathroom windows on the upper floors, and obviously there's building regs for lower windowsills, but it was fairly minor. And we basically launched now a set of types that are specific to this initiative, which is quite exciting. And what it essentially does is it just gives you, there's just a couple of handful of examples of the millions of permutations and combinations where you can take some elements that are standardized, like the chassis of the house and the plan type, which is fairly standard, and then it gives you real-time costs and carbon emissions, and spits out 70 pages of working drawings within 20 minutes. So I think the sky's the limit as technology improves in terms of how we can agglomerate all of this stuff. Last slide, you'll be pleased to know. So currently, within this network, within Edwin's network, we know we've got 300 plus regional builders who are in the network. Within the Building a Legacy group, we've got over 60 major landowners, all very interested in wanting to be part of this. And with Ashley's network of professionals, apprentices, and others, we've got thousands of professionals, apprentices that are also interested in what we're doing. And what we're hoping is that for those that want to, we can help members and builders grow on the opportunities that we will hopefully put up to building more homes. You know, and if we just took people building 25 homes a year to building 250 homes a year, that would be a lot more homes. So really what we see is the scaling, but volume builders and national builders can't scale. They might increase by a factor of 1.2, 1.3 if you're lucky, but it's unlikely that they're going to double, triple or quadruple in size. It's not unfeasible over a decade or something for SME builders to go from 25 to 50 to 100 to 250 to 500 plus, and actually scale on the opportunities. So that's what we're interested in. We're also interested, as Chris and Phil mentioned, in the SMEs that have been through this journey, also mentoring and nurturing the younger SMEs, and that happens practically on sites, so they can work together and learn the tricks of the trade. You know, we're already seeing this with different builders coming together as part of consortium. You have two who've done it before and one who's new, and that person learns and often is the best because they're more hungry, etc., etc. So we're going to launch. I think within 90, we've got a 90-day plan. We had our first board meeting, quite an intense board meeting, I think it's fair to say, Edwin, yesterday.
Yes.
I feel exhausted, but we're going to launch with essentially registration, which will be equivalent to the first year's membership, when you will then be able to view the first 5 modules, which will come online every couple of months. We'll be launching a new digital module. And then hopefully, and we've already got 25 people interested in the enabling program. So we've got the structure there. We just need to formalize that. And obviously we want to get the digital information up and running because that'll be the first part of the enabling. And then by the end of the year, after year 1, we'll hopefully have it up and running. At the moment, we need startup funding really to get for the first 2 to 3 years to get it ticking over. After that, through the enabling, the quality mark and various other bits in the business plan, it's more than self-sustaining. So as a CIC, we'll be reinvesting all the money into innovation and services. So this we've got a growth plan that goes kind of 3 to 6 years, but self-sustaining at year 3. So it's the startup phase that we're into now. So thanks, Edwin. Hopefully that made some sense, and very happy to share any more.
Well, Ben, again, incredible, and obviously honoured to be part of the board and doing what we're doing, because it really does bring together perhaps everything, the complete SME ecosystem, and do that. But I think it would be a good time, really. I know we've hit the 10:30 mark, but I want to open the floor to questions. I'm not sure if I can see people that put their hands up, Anna, at the moment. Ed Wheatonham, you were very quick, Ed, my gosh. And you've just come back, and I think you wrecked your vehicle, didn't you? Where you were, you sent it on LinkedIn, mate.
Managed not to wreck it, but I did require pulling out of a boggy field.
Look after the homes you build better than the cars that you drive.
You see, Edwin, that's the thanks I get for posting an honest post on LinkedIn that isn't just yet another "look at me, aren't we doing well" post. But yeah, I got my hire car bogged in a field in Switzerland. But fortunately, there was a guy next door who managed to pull it out, so I got away with that. But Ben, thanks for your presentation. One of the slides talked about finance or funding, and I just thought that'd be interesting to hear a little bit more. As we're in that stage of growing from 25, we've got some larger opportunities that are coming forward, and we're very aware of that requirement to sort out funding and to get that lined up. And so, yeah, be interested to hear a little bit more about that side of things as well.
Thank you.
So
Go on, Ben,
we've
sorry.
had, I don't know whether Paul Sonnabend's on the call or others, but we've obviously had two bankers, entrepreneurs in Paul Sonnabend for Relendex, who funds SMEs, and Close Brothers as well. Daniel Joyce has been part of it. And in 10 days, I'm taking Nigel Barclay, who heads up essentially the National Housing Bank around. Homes England at the moment, my understanding is they're less interested in smaller builders. I think they're interested in builders that are maybe doing 75 and taking them to 200 so that they get that fund. So that's what I'm going to be spending a day down at Wellbourne and then at Poundbury talking to him about a pilot. He's happy to talk to help us with a pilot essentially for funding for that scale. I think at the smaller scale, it's more about understanding how we can coordinate the different builders together and then agglomerate them for wider opportunities. The working group we had on this said that you'll still have to go through the due diligence individually. So I think on the first site, there won't be many benefits, but essentially as you work through with a funder, the due diligence, then the idea is to begin to build a template that then can be multiple templates for different builders that can then be coordinated with one funder. So that's something that essentially we're working on, but I can see Paul has got his hand.
Over to you, Paul.
Am I live?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to be part of this very large forum, and it's very exciting that 2 years of meetings and probably 3 years in the planning of the Regional Building Foundation is starting to come into action now. There are a range of solutions depending on the scale. The way that we see the project at the moment is we're not expecting anybody who's building 10 houses now to in any way think they're going to be building 100 houses in a year's time, 2 years' time. There is a scale, there's experience to be had, and the finance will follow through with it. Initially, I'm looking at helping and working with those SMEs who want to get from sort of the 10 to the 50 house a year stage and financing that sort of level. Part of what we're doing is securing, government funds and then being able to pass it out. So we are already partnered with the British Business Bank, and when the new Homes England Bank launches in the beginning of April, we will be having discussions about how we can feed this into the market. So that's happening already. Part of what we're looking at, and part of where the difference will come, is where the land is the land value is deferred, and so we're looking more towards partnership type agreements. Financing land which you have to buy on day one and carrying the cost of financing land throughout a project is extremely expensive. So if we don't have to do this, if there's some way that landowners can participate, maybe even if they end up getting all of the money that the bank would have got at the end of the project or close to it, it's much more easy. It keeps the loan to values down. It makes the cost of capital lower. This is an individual project by project approach. And this is something that we will be working with you because it's never going to be one size fits all. So that's essentially what we're looking at and where we hope to be able to participate. And this is not a selling up organisation, but you all know we now exist. So in due course, hopefully, we'll be having lots of conversations with you all.
Thank you, Paul. I can see Chris Carr, you've got your hand up, Chris. Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, just a brief one. I've got to say that Homes England are looking to help and especially do joint ventures with others and taking and being a second charge. We had a presentation this week from Stuart Dawkins from Homes England, who did a great presentation on how he wants to help the SMEs, but with other people as well. So not just being the first lender, they can be the second lender on it. But we can't dismiss Homes England. They are willing to help and they are putting something in place, but to join it with your own money people as well, Edwin. But we just can't dismiss Homes England because they are offering and now going lower and lower in unit size down to 5 and potentially lower than that.
Well, that's great to hear, because most SMEs that I've spoken to, it's been a nightmare historically with Homes England. They've been playing lip service, and I know there's been quite a change of guard in terms of people there. So that's great news, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be honest. We know they had a new CEO and a new chair, so obviously it wasn't working. And I think that possibly, and I'm not quoting, but possibly on the last chance saloon to deliver. But they are trying to do it, and they are opening a website soon to make it simpler and make everything a bit more simpler, because it's jumping the hurdles is a big issue.
Yeah.
But like I'm saying, that there's many in the market. It's just that we can all work together, and they're willing to take second charges on other people, which is other banks. So that'd be really helpful.
Fantastic.
Just to say that we're meeting with Stuart on Monday, so I'll happily report back at the next conversation about how that went, and just update others on it.
No, that's great, Ed. And Paul, I think you just put your hand up again. Was there something you wanted to add?
Well, essentially they will be under-resourced, and they will be looking to partner with funders. You know, it's very easy to, for example, to take the second charge if the first charge lender has done all the work and due diligence. So the answer is it is a work in progress, but we are actually looking at it in a slightly different way, which may well bring down. You see, that won't help the cost of your capital on your first charge. If they're lending a second, you'll still have to finance that. We're looking at it the other way around, where they will be what we call the super senior lenders, and they might lend, say, at very advantageous rates on, say, the first 30% of your loan to value. So the answer is that I don't think anything is certain. I think they're having lots of exploratory meetings, but we will be part of the process one way or another.
Lovely, Paul. Thank you. Ben, I think you put your hand up.
Just really to pick up on Paul's point, because again, one of the benefits of agglomerating this wider network, including landowners, is that there's been for 4 years now quite a lot of work that's been going on with myself, Gail Mayhew, and Charlie Dugdale, who's been on the steering group around the stewardship initiative, and there's been 6 meetings with Treasury. So it's got into and it's been presented to the major landowner forum with MHCLG, which is essentially all to do with this deferral, the joint venture approach, and deferring the land payments, or sort of putting land in as equity under the stewardship model, which is a game changer because it means you don't have to buy the land up front and carry that cost all the way through. There's disincentives to that in terms of tax, because once landowners go from selling land into what's seen to be development, they go from capital gains into income tax, and so the tax position is what's being discussed. But these are all things that we need to be sort of getting together with and trying to make the case for how, unless you begin to crack those, what we struggle with, obviously, with wearing my King's Foundation hat, is we're not allowed to lobby or be seen anywhere near that. But there, you know, you've got the nationals of the Home Builders Federation, and you've got the land promoters. But there isn't a very powerful lobby, despite Edwin's good efforts in the APPG for SMEs. You know, if you had a lobby of SMEs, builders, you know, that group of people, including willing participants in the regions, who might be able to knock on the door more easily in policy terms and get things moving. But at the moment, it's very difficult.
Thank you, Ben. And I think probably finally, I'm going to hand over to Joe Jelly Aspin Holmes. Joe, good morning. Probably last question, because we're 10 minutes over time. But over to you, Joe.
And good morning, everybody. Thanks, Ed, and thanks, Ben. Great presentation. It's something that we've been following for some time, and I love the idea of the initiative. As a small, I would say, bespoke developer, it can be a little bit overwhelming, sort of just trying to establish how it could work for us. So it was really just a case of, is there some form of summary sheet or some form of presentation that could be put together just to see how it all could possibly come together in terms of the land purchasing, the financing, the contracting, just something that we can look at internally to see how we can incorporate it within our business and what else we need to do, just so there's a bit of a clearer sort of precise step process that we would go through, just to give us a bit more information and background to work on.
Do you want to answer that, Ben?
Yeah, well, we're going to, so as part of the launch, we've got a website that Anna's helped with that's up and running, and we'll be able to put, essentially that'll describe the whole initiative, and then we'll be loading up the different areas with more information as the thing builds. But it's a kind of building process. Year one is about implementing the various strands. What we found with the project is, because it's so multifaceted and it's broad, it's very complex and difficult to describe it in one hit. It becomes easier when you just focus on one area. Like if you just say, right, I want to take part in enabling for 25 homes. So what we've got is we've got roadmaps under each of those different 4 segments, if you like. Well, certainly the first 3 got roadmaps for the forums, roadmaps for the educational bit, the digital knowledge hub, and a roadmap for the enabling project. So we'll load those up on the website so that you can see them. And in the meantime, happy to share informally what we've got.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Ben. And I think obviously Ben put there that we've got the enabling program, which obviously we can have SME builders sign up to. You can do that, and I think Anna and myself through this forum will be dropping a line, Ben, to everybody to give everybody the opportunity to register in terms of that. So I think, you know, I'm delighted that this forum has created the momentum, the movement, but also it means you are the first people to have the opportunity to join, to register, to be members of what we're creating. So we'll be getting a note out. I think there's probably 5 or 6 key questions, Ben, that we'll be asking of people, because we want to make sure it's going to be suitable. But the one thing I think I want to make clear is you don't have to. I want to see a country where we've probably got 30 CG fries that we help to grow to Phil. Not all look like Phil, clearly, but we don't want to build some clones, but we'd like to have up and down the country. I think that would be a great legacy for us all to do that. But many people will want to stay at 20, 30 units a year. The Regional Building Foundation is all about that, but it also wants to give the people the opportunity to accelerate their business should they choose to. So I think it's an all-encompassing, it's a broad church, but what it is, in my opinion, is an SME ecosystem where we're actually pulling together all various organisations in the whole process. And it's all about trust and having people that have been there, done it, and people that know it, that you can trust. I think trust in this industry is a rare word that people often use. But if you've got people that you can trust, then it makes making decisions a lot easier, and it mitigates risk. And I think we're in the business of mitigating as much risk and increasing the level of certainty and perhaps visibility of 2 to 3 years through the way that things are funded. I think that's going to help every SME house builder up and down the country. And scale will have benefits, you know, by bringing together. And if by the end of this year, this forum has 500 SME house builders, we have well over 25% of all SME house builders. Number 10, number 11 will not be able to ignore stuff that comes from this forum. So we are creating something special, and the Regional Building Foundation brings so many other aspects together. So, you know, I'm delighted to be representing you on that board, but it's for your good selves to help us to shape and navigate the waters ahead, because as we know, house building is never straightforward, and you know, we're always evolving and we're having to be agile, and it's great to have, you know, such a great group on this forum. So I'd just like to thank you, Ben. I thought it was an incredible, eloquent summary of, my gosh, 4 years of us together, and the amount of reports and stuff you've sent me. You presented it so beautifully, and I think it's invaluable to everyone in this forum. We will be sharing this with everybody, but I'd urge you, when you get the stuff through, and it will come through from Anna and myself in terms of the Regional Building Foundation, you know, we're looking at literally a minimum of 100 that we'd like to capture in terms of this. It also will support us in terms of maybe having some founding sponsors of the Regional Building Foundation as well, for them to know that we've got 100 SME builders of a certain size behind that. So this is all part of you helping us to help you with the Regional Building Foundation. So on that note, I wish you all a wonderful day. The sun's out in Surrey. I think the sun's out in most places. So, you know, we're starting on a good note. I'm just off for lunch. Surprise, surprise. And I will be having 2 puddings probably, because I'm playing a paddle match with my wife at 6 tonight. So there you go. Admission from me. But hopefully you'll forgive me for that. But I look forward to catching up with you all on the next forum. We've got the Bank of England, Gareth, coming on. He normally captures a great number, and I think that's on the 7th of May, Anna. We may have a call on the on April, but note the 7th of May. Gareth Harrison is phenomenal, and he will be sharing stuff with us as well. So on that note, thank you to everybody. Again, we are making a difference collectively to this. So thank you again, Ben. You've done a great job for us, and look forward to continuing to support you and all the great work you're doing for us. Cheers, Ben. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.